I'm Chanale, and this is the Weekly Squeeze on Moral Edge. If you're enjoying these conversations, follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify, and head over to moraledge.com for the full episodes and everything we couldn't fit into this one. Boris Shtanda is standing under a wedding canopy in Jerusalem. He lifts his leg and brings it down to break the glass, the way every Jewish groom does since the temple fell. Except the leg is titanium and carbon fiber, because the real one is gone. Blown off in Beit Hanun when an explosive device killed 4 men standing next to him and threw him through the air like nothing. He came out of a coma 5 days later and learned what was missing. Tonight, the glass doesn't just break under his foot. It shatters into 100 pieces, and the room is crying before anyone says a word. That's one body. Now, look at the rest of them. Over 900 soldiers killed since October 7th. More than 300 of them in the first 48 hours. Their lives cut down on the border before the army even had time to organize a response. Over 6,000 wounded, nearly 1,000 seriously enough to change the rest of their lives. 99 men fitted with prosthetics. And underneath it all, a number that's so hard to say out loud. More than 60 soldiers, the overwhelming majority of them reservists, who survived the war and then took their own lives. Men called up 6 times, 7 times, 8 times. Men whose children stopped asking when Abba was coming home because the answers kept changing. This is what a soldier's body and a soldier's mind have absorbed in this war. Skin, bone, a nervous system that doesn't reset just because the Miluim ends. A 23-year-old missing an arm who fought to get back into his unit. A 40-year-old who spent more nights in a sleeping bag near Gaza than in his own bed this year. People who go back, not because it's noble in this abstract way, but because the guy next to them is still going. And somebody has to be the one standing at the edge of this country and protecting it with its actual body. I am a Chabad Lubavitcher. So is my guest. And there's a piece of history that sits underneath everything she does, as do I. In the days before the 6-Day War, the 3 armies massed on Israel's borders, and half the world predicted a second annihilation. Yet the Lubavitcher Rebbe sent young men into army bases to wrap tefillin onto the arms of terrified soldiers before they went out to fight. An actual strap on an actual arm, because he taught it would shield the man wearing it. And for decades after, whenever the conversation turned to giving up land for peace, the Rebbe refused to let it become an option. It was not politics. He said the same thing every time. This is pikuach nefesh, saving Jewish lives. Nothing else in this conversation matters more than that. So when a soldier is sent into Gaza wearing a ceramic plate manufactured before 2009, a plate the Army's own website would later admit is not safe, that is not a logistics problem. That's the same question the Rebbe was answering. In 1967, just wearing different clothes. My guest today lives inside that question every day. Her name is Chaya Hitin, co-founder of Unit 11741. Is it?
Yeah, and the Alliance for a Secure Jewish Future. That's what the project is 11741.
Amazing. Working alongside Daniel Mayel.
Mm-hmm.
Since October 7th, they've equipped over 35,000 soldiers, giving out close to 2,000 medic bags, and built a local manufacturing pipeline in Netanya because importing wasn't fast enough to keep up with the need. The pressure they put on the Army got so strong that in December 2024, the IDF launched a website where soldiers can anonymously check their own gear. Chaya told me something I still can't get over. A soldier she never met, who lived a few meters from her house, was killed. The paramedic who treated him told her the vest he was wearing, the one that he fought for his life with, had come from her earlier that week. This is where we're starting today. This is Moral Edge. Let's get into it. Chaya, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Chanale. I appreciate the intro.
Please, it's my honor. I want you to take us back to October 7th,
okay,
where a lot of our guests start their story. You're an Anglo-Israeli, but you are one with his country, and you felt it as deeply as we all did. So take us back to that day and explain us, when did you realize that this was going to change your life in the way that it did?
Well, it's funny because I think all of us Anglos in Israel were kind of sucked into the vortex, out of beyond our understanding and our control, because soldiers were fighting on Zikim. This is like one of the most underrepresented battles. I think it took a year for it to become public about the battles that went on that day, but we were apprised of it like immediately from soldiers who were actually there. And one of my neighbors, he came to me and he said, listen, we're being gunned down. We don't have ceramic plates at all. We don't have helmets. The warehouses were locked or they were ransacked. Hamas stole a lot of the equipment. And it created a massive crisis. They were very young, 20-year-olds, fathers with children. And at that moment, I didn't know. I was humbled by the ask because I said, what do you want from me? I'm living in a rental. I have 5 kids. I work a 9 to 5. I'm not a fund. I'm not a foundation. And it's just, a 200,000 shekel request of 100 helmets. It's nothing. Can you do that? And I'm like, at that moment, we're talking about Chabad, and we're talking about, today's Gimel Tammuz. It's the day that Chabad's entire focus changed from physical to spiritual. And at that moment, I had a spiritual moment where I realized this is a godlike moment. This is not me and my physical body. I don't have that money. You want 200,000 shekel? That's a mortgage. I don't, I'm in a rental. What do you want from me? And I went to sleep and I said to Hashem, you made this mess. You got to clean this up. And I will be your vessel. And it was very strong because I didn't even get stressed. It wasn't like, oh, what am I going to do? This mania of Jews are suffering. I was just clear. It was like, this is really happening. They really need help. Now, what next? And the next morning I got a call from a friend of mine from the community in Rehovot, and she said, there's a shul. They want to take on a project. And I said, okay, well, would they consider helmets? And at that point, that's where we got started. And an amazing community in Rehovot, this shul called Khatam, and there's another shul called Berman. And it was all grassroots, like everywhere, like in Beit Shemesh, like Jerusalem, everywhere you go in this country, people were just mobilizing their community, their shuls, their neighborhoods, everything.
But a $200 helmet and a 10 shekel tzitzis are two different things. I mean, people were stringing tzitzis.
It was not $200.
They
They went up to $500. The suppliers had to buy out airplanes because El Al would not put the equipment on it. And what's interesting, right, there's a big difference in cost, but even the costs weren't the same cost. In the morning, it was 1,400 shekel. By the end of the day, it was 1,900. And then we kept making shipments, and it kept delayed and delayed and delayed. But the miracle of that story is that not only did Hashem hear those soldiers who are righteous and save their lives, and we know many lives were saved in that moment, and thereon, 7 rounds in, we get regards from every single piece of equipment that we get. When one of our pieces of equipment, it becomes a talisman, a bond between us, the people, the Jewish people, and our representative on the front. And when he's hit by a piece of shrapnel, his first call is, Chaya, I won't believe what happened to your helmet. And not just me, all the people who are involved. And there's, like me, there's thousands of people.
Yeah, we delivered helmets last year, Uri and I could not get over how excited they were. They pulled out their camera. First of all, it's very personal, the helmet. I mean, it's protecting your head, and it's comfort.
It's more than comfort. The old helmets have mold inside. They give them horrible fungal infections, and they don't protect from death. If, God forbid, you're in the radius of a blast, we're not even talking about sniper fire. God forbid, something drops here, and you fly 20, 50 meters in the air. Just the impact of that could cause a major brain injury or bleeding, and they die.
Right, and our enemy's weapons are more advanced than they were when those helmets were made.
But even without that, even without the most sophisticated drone, you're in a
just
great
say falling
risk.
from a specific height.
If, let's say, IED explodes over there, and you're over here, you're not even there. So the person there, God forbid, dies. But you over here, what we're doing is we're protecting the radius. We're giving everyone a chance.
So you're telling me they were not even as secure as some of the more advanced motorcycle helmets that they're selling on the market?
They're not safe at all. They put their lives at risk.
Right.
It is pikuach nefesh. And I had a guy from Efrat. Yeah, from Efrat. He drives a D9, 3 little children. He knocks on my door one day, totally out of the blue, and he tells me, Chaya, I just want to come here and tell you thank you, because I was on my D9, I was hit by an RPG, and we went over an IED at the same time. And I got to the hospital, and the doctor said that if I would have been with the Army issue helmet, I would not be here today. And here's your helmet, and there's like barely a scratch. And I am alive today, thanks to you. And there is nothing so, first of all, humbling, and there's no gratitude in the world like that moment where you're like, we can do something so small that has such a huge impact. This is a life. This is a father. This is a brother. This is a, it's a world. And it's so easy to do. But thank God, they no longer cost $500. So now the cost of helmets are closer to $200, $250. It's a more reasonable cost. And we work with loan programs. So soldiers who have short rounds can just borrow equipment. They don't, we don't have to raise money or we don't have to buy it. But soldiers who, like medics, who work nonstop, they could work 300 days a year, 800 days of miluim so far. I can't tell them go borrow a helmet because at 2:00 they could be called up to Lebanon at 3:00. They don't have time to go and borrow a helmet. So we're trying to really prioritize caring for those. We've learned over the last almost 3 years what's a priority and who really needs. And we're learning from also the events that are happening. Like I had, right before I came here, there was a paramedic and he was in special forces. And I have to mention him because it ties everything in. He was in Sayeret Givati. Their entire medic corps in Gaza was hit by, and they were all seriously injured. And they had no one to rescue them or heal them because they were the healers. And they had to heal themselves. They performed surgery on themselves while seriously injured on their own stomachs. Every single guy survived. These are ninjas. This paramedic was in the hospital for 8 months. You know what 8 months is? And he burns. The first thing he did when he recovered and was able to stand on his own 2 feet was, when can I go back? Because he wants to show for his brothers. And I look at this is a level of self-sacrifice and mesiras nefesh that we've seen back in the days of Russia, where they were tortured and sent to, prisons and to Siberia for the sake of the survival of the Jewish people. And it's such holiness and such, you're looking at that and you're like, who are we in our small lives? And they've walked in Kivshana Ish, and they're willing to walk right back. And they've suffered the burns and the pain. And I saw him today and I said, how's your leg? And he's like, I have chronic level 10 pain every day, all day. And he had just drove in from Lebanon. I said, how long did it take? It took about 4 hours, door to door. And I said to him, so what's going on over there? And he said, well, actually, the soldier last week was killed, my team. And he said the piece of shrapnel went under his brainstem and just killed him. And it was very hard. He said, like most of the guys that he had been serving with, he became bonded to them. And then in that moment, they were taken from him. And he's like, I don't feel anything. He's like, I just don't feel. But at the same time, he's like, I'm going to go back because they need me. The country needs me. And he's really living in his service. And so when I look at him and I say, okay, this guy has given his life, in his body, his skin, his bones, his pain thresholds, and he's completely in it. Like when he's in Lebanon, I said to him, do you drink coffee? He's like, I don't drink coffee. He hasn't slept in days. He hasn't taken a shower in a week. Now, in this heat, he didn't take a shower an entire week. And they're willing to live like that so that we can stay here in our cool air conditioner, drinking coffee, enjoying our lives, friends, children, our jobs. And they do it with joy. And it's such a tremendous level to experience firsthand. And living in Israel, it's an honor and a privilege. And I know that the soldiers, when they're released, they go all over the world and everyone meets them. But when you see it day in, day out, morning to night, you see the cost. You see also the socioeconomic impact. He's a nurse. He works in Shaarei Tzedek. So when's the last time you went to work? He's like, I've been to work 3 years ago. He's like, I don't even know if I have a job when I finish. He's like, I'm so broken. My body is so broken. He still hasn't gotten married. He needs to get married. And it's like, he hasn't started his life. I'm like, how old are you? 28, 25.
I saw these guys. We visited the hospitals after the war and we brought iPhones and PlayStations and anything we could.
Wow.
And people donated and and like you were saying that these soldiers are willing to go back. I'm like, in a generation where you could sit in air conditioning on a PlayStation, you want to go back in this 100-degree heat to fight a never-ending hateful enemy that's just determined
Right.
Yeah, and again, it's just the numbers are also like you would think they'd be so intimidating to our guys, but they know that they're the army of Hashem. They're the army of Israel. The God of Israel is on their side. They have that. They walk with that pride.
And also the brotherhood. And that was one thing that was so important for me to just bring here in this moment, because I feel like there's like the narrative, there's the media narrative, there's the state of the nation that's being presented to us. And then there's the reality. The reality is there are no boundaries between brothers. When they're out there on the front, doesn't matter what you vote, doesn't matter what you believe, what kind of haircut you have, you are brothers, how many tattoos you have. And he said to me, I can't stand leaving there because I come here and all I see on the news are, this fight and this road blockage and all this infighting. And he's like, and over there, we're just one. We have one purpose. We serve our country. We serve our people. We serve our brothers. We love each other. And I think that is really the vision. And, the Rebbe, when he was 3 years old, he had a vision of, what is the redemption? What is the Geulah? And he had it in his brain. And that was one thing that really carried me through the last 3 years, is that I had a vision. I knew it wasn't about who I am. It doesn't matter, because I'm no one, okay? I'm an average citizen. I'm a neighbor. I'm a friend. That's it. It's not like there's no CEO title. There's no
special skills.
20 million, running a successful foundation for 30 years. Just drive, it needs to happen. And the knowledge that this is right and true. And I think that is something that all of us now, in such confusing times, we're looking at the world, we're looking at the politics. It's confusing. We really don't know, where's our ground? Where do we stand? Where's America in this? But where are we for ourselves and our brothers and all the infighting? Is that real? And the truth is that it's not real. We have to have a vision of what is real. What is real? What we see and what we know. And when I see the soldiers, they are real. They are seeing the real threats, and they are really showing up, and they're really willing to go back, and they really care about each other, and they really care about us. And that's so real. And also, more than that, this is something that I mentioned to you over the phone, that I feel this honor of seeing the best people in the world. Okay, they're so, first of all, holy and humble and self-sacrificing and caring and giving and brave, the courage, because courage isn't not experiencing pain or fear. It's facing those fears. It's the true masculinity. It's the positive masculinity where a man is a lion and he goes in and he's protective. They're just the protective older brother of the Jewish people. And they're in their element. And I'm like, wow, all day. Wow. Who are these people? And on the other hand, working with so many different organizations and donors, like Ori Gobi, who has Documenting Israel, and he's working so hard to create awareness about Israel. There's a guy called David Kovler. He lives here in Beit Shemesh. Yeah. He's amazing. Yes. He drives around and he fundraises for soldiers, and he's like, Chaya, who do you have on your list? And he's like, I'm going to show up. And he shows up. And this woman, Rita Goldberg from Yeshivat Lev Torah, she's living in New York. And she's like, Chaya, what kind of tzaddikim do you have in your list? And she's living in New York. She can't sleep at night because she's like, I can't sleep. What's going on with him? And then I have this whole group of like little old men who are like in their 80s and 90s in Florida and New York and all these other places. And they're like, do Jewish boys need helmets in Lebanon? And they can't sleep at night. And I'm like, wow, this is also amazing, because these are also selfless people, the best people. And I'm like, here are the best people serving the country, and here are the best people who care about those serving the country. And in the end, they're all serving the greater nation, because we're living in a state, this affects all of us. This affects you, right? You're in Beit Shemesh. What's the connection between Beit Shemesh and Lebanon? What's the connection between Rehovot and Gaza? The fact is, whatever is happening in those corners, we know how close it is to home. But more than that, it's close to the entire world. Australia, Florida, London. The IDF are slowly deconstructing all the terror infrastructures, and they're doing the ultimate love of a fellow Jew by ridding the world of these terror, networks and these, people who are really, like you said, they're just relentless. And they're doing it for all of us. It doesn't matter where you are. It's not a zip code. This is a narrative. They don't like Jewish people, period.
They don't like the West.
Don't like the West, but specifically us, and it's there, and there's nothing we can do about it. And it's not like we did anything, just we exist, and it bothers us. I saw this anti-Semitic comment like, we just don't like how resilient and happy you are all the time. Like, yeah, you know what? We are happy. You know why? Because
we're one of the happiest countries in the world.
No, because we have each other, and they don't. We're living in a world where no one's getting
They're
married.
fighting for death. We're fighting for life.
I'm not even talking about, the radical Islam. I'm talking about the world in general. Like, people aren't getting married. They're having kids. They're not, they say the Jewish people, the community is tight. If one of us, God forbid, has an issue, we all step up, even if we don't know them. Why can't a woman in New York not sleep at night because her Jewish brother, who she's never met, is suffering in the heat and with the mosquitoes, and they're biting them and the fungal infections, and she can't sleep until they have the proper equipment? Like, why is it her business? Because it's us. And one of the most amazing things that I've seen, and this is just really the honor of living in Israel, and I feel it all the time. And I grew up in Chabad. It's not like we're shoved down our throat all day, you have to live in Israel, you have to live in Israel. Chabad has an approach where wherever you are, you become a lamplighter, you transform the world, you make a Chabad house. I thank God my shlichut ended up here. And one of the most amazing things is every single guy who walks through my door, and girl, we serve everyone. And we also have Druzis and Muslims, but that's besides the point. They have one thing in common, which I find astounding. First of all, they're living a life of service, and it's really a true path of joy, is that when we put our ego aside, they put on the uniform, they're in green, they look beautiful, they look focused, and they look uniform in purpose. And I really feel like they're the same DNA. Like, I see David, Shlomo, Menachem, Eliashiv, Bar, they all have these, Israeli names, and they have the Yishuv names, and they have the Hasidish names. But if you took them and you cut them up into pieces and we analyze the DNA, we're literally all the same. They all have the same faces, the same tone, the same attitude. And what's ironic and interesting is we all have the same politics. Even with the piercings and the tattoos, underneath it all, every single person in this country wants to live and wants the other person's children to live. That's all we want. You eat cheesecake and this person eats shrimp. Okay, it is what it is. But fundamentally, our values overlap. And I think there are forces trying to tear the country apart. And I think you really see that when you feed into the media, drain. But in the reality, when you're here, you walk down the street, someone will stop for you if you're hurt.
Neve Shamir is the epitome of that. There's every stripe and type here.
This is the neighborhood?
Yeah.
Really?
One neighbor is for the army, and one neighborhood is against the internet. So you have, that whole, it's a paradox here, but like you explained it so beautifully, honestly. I haven't even heard it said so eloquently. And I like that it's coming from you, because you really had a front line. And what's fascinating to me, and this is what I want to get to, there's two things that keep coming up to my head. First of all, I think everyone who's listening is wondering, why are we responsible for gear to begin with? Yeah. So I want to address that. Okay. Let's break down, at what point did we realize that Israel is not equipped, that this has to come from donations? Is it fair to ask people abroad to pay for something? We're paying taxes.
We have to separate it, though.
Okay, so let's get into it.
Okay. October 7th, Hamas broke into our stock rooms and stole a lot of our equipment. We'd also loaned a lot of our equipment to Ukraine, and we also sent a lot of our medical equipment to Turkey in the earthquake crisis. So there was we were short, and also the Army had shifted gears in the last decade, going more to special forces and Air Force, and they were kind of demilitarizing the ground forces. So we were caught with our pants down. 2 years in, our Gear Integrity Project, we have been pushing the government and also Army logistics with our statistics, showing them across the board, and they themselves, were slowly catching up a few thousand helmets a month. So within 2 years, 3 years, they estimated that they would catch up with everyone. So I can tell you very confidently that the situation we have today is very different from the situation we had 2 years ago. 2 years ago, it was like actual combat soldiers, commandos, were going in with nothing. That isn't the situation now. The situation we have now is very different. Right now, we are serving soldiers who do not get a quota from the military, okay? And who are they? First of all, they go in with a commando, or they sometimes go in before the commando. They prepare the way for the commando. They could be drivers, they could be medics, the evacuation forces, they can be, tankists, artillery. These are all people in very dangerous areas, and they are being attacked, and especially now with the drones, they're being attacked even more. Like I would say right now, if there was a state of emergency, I would say state of emergency right now is every Sadir boy in a tank needs a helmet. And not just the Army issue helmet, which is usually expired and 20, 30 years old, 40 years old. Because right now, because of the drones, they're coming in swarms and they're attacking these 19-year-old boys. We know of a soldier right now who's 19, was in an attack which hit 4 soldiers. 1 was killed. 3 were seriously injured. 1 of them is in a coma because he was hit in his head with an old helmet. And if, God forbid, he's in a coma for no reason with a preventable injury, if he would have had a proper helmet, I don't think that is moral or normal or fair or reasonable. Now, will the military adjust its purchasing? Not. It will take a very long time. And we're lobbying for that. We're pushing for that. But it takes a long time. It's a huge machine. And because we are dealing right now with an emergency response, we can't wait for the Army to catch up. It could take years. And one of the things that we track is, okay, when are you going to be getting? When does the Army anticipate that they're going to provide your, uniforms, helmets, vests, plates, whatever? And what they say, okay, they give us 2-year deadline or a 5-year timeline, but they're in now. So you're going to wait 5 years? What are we going to sit on the border and wait for the Army to catch up? We don't have that time. And another very important factor is that commando soldiers or, real combat soldiers who are like working day in, day out, even when they get Army issue equipment, the best, or they source their own equipment, or they have very good donated equipment. If you are working with this morning to night, sleeping in your vest, rolling around, evacuating your brother who is shredded and bloody and whatever, there's wear and tear. It does not last forever. And one of the things is that I'm evaluating now in myself now, one of the reasons why I'm even here is to platform these people and give them a voice and say, look, they're out there for us. There is no choice here. This isn't like people are like, oh, I need action. I'm bored in my life, a midlife crisis. Let me buy a Porsche.
G.I. Joe.
It gets old very, very fast. The fact is that they're there because they don't have a choice. And the military is really doing amazing, okay? Right before Lebanon broke out, now I could say 100% of combat soldiers had what they needed. And we were still serving all the combat support who are going into dangerous areas and still attacked. Oh, and that's what I wanted to tell you about the paramedic who came today, is that he was telling me about an evacuation that happened yesterday. We saw the headline this morning. This beautiful Sasha, who had saved soldiers from a terror attack 7 years ago, a new Ole from Ukraine, a hero. And during that evacuation, when the medics and the evacuation forces came to take him to get medical help, the medics were attacked. And that happens every time. And yet, the military does not prioritize them for a quota. And we do not understand this. We don't. There are things that, there's like a Kabbalah, there's like the Kabbalah of the Army. We are challenging the status quo. We don't agree to this. We are working together with the doctors and the paramedics and the medics to understand in real time, what do you need to save this country and to come home safe and to bring our soldiers home safe?
What does your average Sadir soldier get? That's your soldier between 18 and 21, mandatory service. And what does your average reservist get from the Army? Like, what's the
It just
package?
depends on the role.
Okay.
So the average combat
soldier.
A combat soldier gets everything he needs. Sometimes donors abroad, this is something that people don't understand. Why are they still reaching out if they get good stuff? They want they need an upgrade depending on their role.
So let's say those orange boots that the soldiers wear. You can wear those, or there's the tan laced ones.
The tactical boots. Okay, so the reason why there's even first of all, Sadir generally don't ask for tactical boots unless they're part of like special forces like Yahalom. But overall, they're not really allowed to, from what I understand. But one of the things that's you have to understand about the boots, something that I don't address directly, I have partners who do. There's Boots for Israel, and I have other amazing people working behind the scenes doing it. But basically, the boots you get when you're 18, they're supposed to serve you until you're released from the Army. Have you ever worn a pair of shoes for 30, 40 years? And
Well, some of these guys have.
Well, they don't have a choice, and they're full of holes, and they're killing their feet, and they're not made for the terrains and the weather. They're dealing with very difficult conditions. And it's the same with uniforms. And listen, if somebody came to me today, which is my prayer, okay, and says, here's $100 million. Let's show some care and respect and dignity. Let's restore the dignity of our soldiers. I would give everyone a new uniform and a new pair of boots.
Why not give it right to the army?
Because the army will continue to do what it does. It has its priority system. So it means Sheldag, Frontline Special Forces will get 99% of the budget, and the ground forces will be left behind. And it will take them a very long time to prioritize it.
And then there's people who fall between the cracks. You're saying like the paramedics and...
There's a lot of people that fall between the cracks, and they're in the same danger, and they're also in danger. If your son decided to become this really cool, driver / evacuation soldier / medic, okay, he's doing something really cool because he's saving someone's life. He's in Lebanon. He has to drive them out and really get there in time. I had guys who had to pile bodies of wounded. And I had one medic. He's a legend. Everybody knows him in Carmeli. He's an amazing guy. He was in an event with 14 soldiers were injured and I think 6 were killed. And he was the only one standing. And he had to treat all of them. And he was like, this is the first time in my life I understood how important it is for me to have a proper vest and enough equipment on me. And since then, he packs himself with tourniquets and gauze, and we helped him and his medic team to get new vests, new medic pouches, and other equipment that they needed. And again, why? Why are we doing this?
I was thinking, this is just the idea. We also have Kitat Itkonenut, and those are the groups that protect their own communities, exactly. And they're also, we delivered ceramic plates. They were extremely expensive, but they were so grateful. You're saying every soldier needs a helmet. Unfortunately, many citizens need a helmet.
Everyone needs a helmet at this point. But no, yes and no, because I think what the idea is that we hope for the best and we really are living our best life. Mm-hmm. And we prepare for the worst. We're no longer delusional. We're no longer blind and trusting. We know what it could be. However, I know, okay? I've lived in Brooklyn during the riots. I've lived in Canada in areas that were, very populated with Pakistani and Muslims, and I couldn't walk there alone at night. And I'm living in Israel, and I take walks at 11 p.m. at night and at 4 a.m. alone.
It doesn't feel like a war zone.
And I feel safe, and I know in my bones that there are 100,000 people who will die so that I will live. And there's nowhere like that in the world. And I know that my police force are my brothers. When I see a policeman, I feel like, thank you. I know you have my back if, God forbid, I need it. So there's this paradigm here that on the one hand, we need to gear up. And I've met really cool soldiers. Some of them are American, actually, and they're very cool. They're like, since 2015, we have a basement full of helmets and vests because, we wanted to prepare for the day. We knew it was coming. And they're cool. And I think they're like, okay, you know what? Let's be realistic. We don't have to be pessimistic. And I think that today, in America and in Europe, people are getting smarter. They have security guards outside of shoals. You can't write an address publicly of, the vents. Everything is, password protected. And it's not here. Like over here, we're living, really, you see the Rebbe's vision that Israel is the safest place, even with the dichotomy of, oh yeah, there's missiles, and I'm sure you feel the same way. I have 5 kids. I didn't have a bomb shelter for most of the war. It was not pretty. It was not easy. But I do have to say that at this point, when there's another missile attack like there was last week, no one's thinking, oh my God, we're going to die. We're thinking, oh, it's so inconvenient. I had all these appointments.
It's a minor
and they're disruptive.
Right.
It's disruptive. It's like, don't they know we have things to do? Like, just,
right. No one's cowering in fear. We're at the point where we know our strengths. And the whole catchphrase of the war was "Biyachad Nenatzech."
But it's the truth also, because that's what they want. That's what our enemies want from us. They want us to know who we are, have a strong, proud Jewish identity. They want us to stand together as a nation. When we have all this infighting, that's exactly when it happened. If you remember, Erev, the day before October 7th, first of all, I was in Ofakim the day before, and my aunt just moved there a few weeks before, and she's like, stay here for Simchas Torah. And her shul was attacked. They were murdered there. She has a famous story where she was new in town, and this guy has this minhag of falling asleep on the bench outside the shul and getting drunk. And every single Simchas Torah, my aunt's like, something took hold of me, And I freaked out, and I got the whole shul to drag him home. Like literally, he would not stand, and literally everyone in that area was killed the next day. And which was, it gives you the chills when you think about just really what we were dealing with. And on the other hand, I feel hope because I look at who we are today as a nation. First of all, the army called up everybody. Doctors, lawyers, high tech, HR, every single type of person in this country is represented right now in the front. And with that, the greatest minds and innovators. Until now, the army was kind of like, it was a good job. It's like low hanging fruit. You go, you sign up to Keva, you get a package, you get housing, you get, your benefits, and you're like, okay, it's a good job. Education and whatever. But here, we're taking all these new minds and they're seeing and they're evaluating, what is our situation in the Middle East? What are the best, most innovative, creative solutions? How can we address this? How can we think ahead? And how can we become more efficient? And by the way, I just want to tie it in now to tactical equipment. In Lebanon, 20 years ago, they didn't have ceramic plates. I had soldiers in my house who had fought, medics and combat soldiers and commandos who had fought 20 years ago, and they said most of the guys then did not have ceramic plates. Over 130 soldiers died in a very short time period, in like a month. They didn't have plates. It wasn't even a thing. And one of my amazing partners is a guy called Avi Pfeiffer. He's from Efrat. His grandson was killed on October 7th, but he was in Golani, and he jumped on a grenade, and he saved his team. And real hero. And his Zaidi told me like 20, 30 years ago, he was running a gmach for ceramic plates. And I really feel like the people mobilizing the war from behind are, women and older men. And we're just kind of like...
Everyone else is at war.
And the children.
Yeah.
But I want to say about the innovation is that what we really see is that we didn't have then the awareness that we have today. One of the things I mentioned to you is that Israel really has the lowest death rate in war in the world, in any global conflict, in any war. And
the most wars.
I think there are worse places to...
I mean, for our tiny country, sure, but for our tiny country, considering how many soldiers are deployed.
Right. In the last 100 years, it's pretty bad. But one of the most amazing things is that we really know how to save life. And our innovations are saving lives. And there were articles published really early on in the war how the helmets and ceramic plates are game-changing. And I know that they're trying to develop lighter plates and even things that like armor that would protect arms and limbs, because so many soldiers, there's a lot of amputees because, Hamas kind of caught on like, okay, we won't shoot them in the head because they have a helmet. We'll aim for their legs and they'll, bleed out or they'll, become crippled. But what's interesting is that it's really, you see, again, the Rebbe's vision, katit lama'or. We are being pressed as a nation to extract the sweetest, most beautiful splendor, creativity, the unity, the motivation, the vision, things that we were kind of sleeping at the wheel 3 years ago. That's how I feel. It's like we were just kind of everyone just driving in their lane, in their camp and polarized. And then it's like, now we're like, no. Step it up, shake it up. You're one nation, and you have a purpose in this world to illuminate the world, to elevate the world, and to be a role model, a light upon the nations. And these innovations I really see are amazing. And one of the things, helmets and plates, one of the things that really was game-changing, I know that Uri Gobi also gave out medic bags. Yashar L'Chayal are amazing, and they help sponsor some medic bags. We're working with Operation Israel. They're also giving out medic bags. We've given out over 30,000 helmets.
Wow.
And one of the things now that we're doing is we have a list of medic corps across the country. When you say, around 2,000 medics, it doesn't sound like a lot. But when you break it down to 600 separate requests and 600 different teams across the country, and what's incredible is that, someone will call me at 12 o'clock. I need medic bags. I'm like, okay, you can come and, we have in stock. They'll show up. It's all donated. They show up, they pick up their bags. Within 4 hours, I'll get a call from Gaza. Your medic bag saved a life, or your helmet saved a life. 4 hours. The turnaround is unbelievable. No, it's not just gratification. It's really working, and they really need it. Now, why is a medic bag so helpful, and this is why it was very important for me to show you. First of all, it has a rain cover, so that's really important. And we give a whole bunch of suppliers, we really adapt the request to the need. So there's no one size fits all in the military. And that's why I'm saying about Sadir. You asked me what Sadir get. Sadir gets standard issue. Reservists, if they're a specific unit that's more entitled based on different calculations of, the type of service they have and where they serve, they're more likely to get it. However, when there is a 1,000% call up, they don't get, because we're behind, or, they'll get 70%. And that's where we come in, because then they come to me and they say, well, our combat soldiers need 10, 20, 30 helmets. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. And we challenge it, and we go and we talk to Army Logistics. Our goal is to get everything sourced within the military. Okay, it's our taxpayer money. And so we work with the military and we try and get everything addressed in-house. Then when it can't be, and the time frame doesn't allow to wait 6 months, 6 years, that's where we step up with donations. So one of the things that the Army doesn't provide for everybody, only specific commandos get it, are medic bags. And we give them to every single unit. And I've literally seen, first of all, every headline you see in the news right now, our medic bags are active. Artillery, drivers, kitot konanut, Tzela Gez, the woman who was murdered, the pregnant woman who was murdered and her baby lived for a week or two. Mm-hmm. That baby was saved with our medic bag. I got regards from the bag, and it gave
When
him.
you say save with our medic bag, that means the medic showed up and they were not afraid to go running into the line of fire,
right?
Because they knew that they had the gear that they needed, they could access it as they needed, and that's what psychs them up. That's what gives them the adrenaline.
What's the difference? What's the difference? If you're a medic and you don't have your supplies handy, or if it's in a backpack and you can't access it, that you're losing 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes.
Right.
Who
Pints
has
of
2
blood.
minutes?
Mm-hmm. And we know the nature of these injuries.
Exactly. And this is like, for example, they're all retractable. This is one sample that we give. It's retractable at night when it's pitch black. They can see the color codes. Everything is organized. And we've given out also hundreds of bags for paramedics and doctors. And
how much does this bag cost?
This costs now with the exchange, okay? It's around $250. One of the things that's important to note is that when we say doctors, people are like, oh, doctors, why do doctors need donations? But beyond the fact that, everyone's
it's a socialized country and doctors don't make the kind of
even if they do, if they do,
yeah.
Okay, let's say you're a 45-year-old guy, you for sure have, $200 in your pocket. The people we are serving are people who socioeconomically cannot afford it. And usually doctors mean interns who are still students, and they're loaded with 80,000 shekel of tuition debt, and they're still working on minimum wage, and they're not able to do their overtime because they're serving. And the way your salary, most people in this country, if you're like, let's say you're a policeman or you work in a public service, you get paid by overtime. Your salary is not just your base salary. And without your overtime, you can't exist. And now when they pay your reservist salary, they only pay it based on your base salary. So you're screwed. Mm-hmm. And the people are literally, soldiers tell me day in, day out, we are losing 30, 40% of our net income every time we go to serve. Mm-hmm. Now that hurts. That hurts more than getting a back injury.
Let alone the instability that it causes back at home.
The instability at home, the dignity, and not only that, a man can't provide for his kids, the wife loses it, and she wants to kill him, and every single day, soldiers tell me they're getting divorced. It's a reality every day, and it hurts, and because they know that I'll tell you a story about a guy I know who's also commando. He was part of one of, you see the headlines, these ops going into Iran, going into Azerbaijan, going to Somaliland, into Syria. There were these ops where you're able to, they caught Iranian operatives on the border of Syria who were planning to do an October 7th times 20,000 on the northern border, okay? And I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about a year and a half ago, before anyone was talking about it. Mm-hmm. He came home feeling so high because they caught these Iranian operatives. And he knew in that moment, he saved the world. He saved 20,000 people from a massacre. And he came home and his wife served him with divorce papers. Oh, yeah, sure. And that's the dichotomy. And then I said to him, so what are you going to do? He's like, I have to serve my country. And it's a little bit crazy. And we are fighting for our homes at the expense of our homes. And I've had commanders who have told me, listen, my wife gave me an ultimatum. Either you stay home or, you go back and there is nothing to come home to. And again, I think that is something, when we talk about Mesiras Nefesh, what does that mean? How much have you given of yourself to your people? And I think in the days of Russia, when you look at it like, they didn't have their money and they were stuck in, cellars and tortured. Here we have it in these days. People are tortured. It's very hard not to get paid your salary and to make your rent and to not see your wife for months at a time, to deal with that level of resentment. And they're willing to do it because, first of all, they know if not us, then no one.
You were saying earlier that that the politics are actually underneath the surface. Everyone's politics is the same. We all have the same desires to live and the same values, and right. That said, I think what's so heartbreaking for me when I watch this and hear these stories, and I go home and I think about it, is so much pain in vain. Okay, and you as a Lubavitcher, the instructions the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave, and here we are seeing literally the exact results that the Rebbe predicted would take place if we gave back land, if we didn't proclaim sovereignty, if we gave into our enemies. So how does that affect? First of all, you were saying about everyone's politics. You don't see any anger amongst the soldiers. I mean, you don't see that resentment. I'm sure there's people, we hear it at Shabbos tables here and there. People have issues with the government. It's all fair and square. But you don't see that animosity. You don't see anger in the army. Why do you think that is? And how do you cope with the fact that this is so surreal? We had someone who told us exactly how to avoid it, and we walked right, not we, but our politicians and people in charge made choices that walked right into it, and here we are dealing with the fallout.
You ever see these stories where a couple has a fight and then they're mugged and then suddenly they reconcile because something much bigger has brought them together?
Sure.
And I think that's what's happening to soldiers, is that they're going out there and they're seeing Hamas and they're seeing Hezbollah and they're seeing their stockpiles and they're seeing their detailed plans to invade. And they're like, we don't have time for the little stuff. There's something so much bigger at play here. It doesn't, essentially, on October 7th, the people who were sold out by the Gazans were the people who helped the Gazans. And the people up north who had, they were real pioneers. They wanted to protect the Golan, and, they're the ones now paying the highest cost. And we're seeing both sides of the coin. That, first of all, I see soldiers as being intrinsically holy and clear and grounded and living in truth. That said,
so for you, there's no contradiction between being ultra-Orthodox, an observant Jew, and giving your life over to the IDF.
That said,
and we're going to explain that with the flag.
Right. But that said, I do believe that there are nefarious forces within the country, within the military, within the government, within the media, that are being, usually funded through foreign interests, who are trying to sow discontent. And one of the things I've said to people since day one of the war, don't be manipulated. Listen to our gut. Listen to who we know we are. Look at the people in front of you. You want to go and fight with somebody, in Herzliya, you want to pick a fight over, who you vote for. That's great. But how does that serve? All the people in my office and all the people in my husband's family are all marching in Kaplan. They're some of the nicest, kindest people I know. And they're
demonstrating on the left.
Yeah. And they care. They're tremendously caring. They do it because they believe in it. And I respect them for their beliefs. Do I necessarily agree with their policies? No. In May 2024, one of the things that my coworker was telling me that Yair Golan had, mentioned was that we have to leave Rafah now. And a few months later, they found the hostages there.
Correct.
And if we would have listened to him...
the whole world was yelling about Rafah.
Right, but this is within us. And this is within the parties. And I was like, guys, get the politics out of here. Listen to the soldiers. They see what's going on. They have evidence. There are breadcrumbs. So when I talk about politics, there's the politics on the left. There's also the politics on the right. And me as a religious woman, as someone who grew up with, I have many, many Chabad relatives who run Chabad houses, and they have a perspective. And I've studied in Dati Leumi and modern Orthodox schools. I feel a part of the Jewish people from I've lived in Miami, I've lived in Sweden, I lived in California, I'm British, doesn't sound like it, but I feel part of the nation undefined. I learned from the Rebbe, and the Rebbe brought us to where we are. And he said, what is two things that happen? Someone came to the Rebbe and said, can there be a Holocaust again? And the Rebbe said, tomorrow morning. That is intense. And he lived through that. He lost family to the Holocaust, and he lost family to the terror, all the terror that was going on in Russia. So as someone who had experienced that, and he was like so clear, he's like, this could happen tomorrow. And what was his response? Did he become a bitter, cynical, hate-filled, and nobody would have, even held him accountable for that. He had every reason to be, righteously indignant. He said, no, we have to conquer the world with love and with kindness. And this is how I feel. When I look at these soldiers, and I look at their families, and I look at the entire fabric of the Jewish people who are stepping up. I went to physiotherapy for my leg. The physiotherapist said, I stood on the border of Gaza for 8 months treating soldiers for free, and I got hundreds of physiotherapists from all over the world to come and treat soldiers for free. And I didn't want a penny, and we didn't take a penny, and we did it as a labor of love. And then I went and I saw a guy who has a falafel stand. He's like, and we give falafel. And then you cross the street and you go to somebody who does tattoos, and this guy's like, I do tattoos for all the soldiers who want to memorialize. Like, meaning this country is fueled with a will and a drive to give back and to love. And even, in terms of politics, the people marching in Kaplan are losing people too. The people who are burning their flags and Charedim who don't want to enlist, everyone is losing people, whether through terror or through the war. This country, this nation is one. And one of the things I find interesting is that, when we see the Charedim marching, it's a mirror to us. Because I say, Ahavas Yisrael, why am I even bringing it up? Is that I said, the Rebbe said we have to go and hunt down Jews with love. I sit there melting with every story, with every, when someone says, I have soldiers sending me messages all day, I really want to get married. Find me a woman. And I'm like, and they're so lonely. They're out there on the front, and they're like, nobody cares about them if they live or die. And they want to leave a legacy. They don't want to die without anything
First of all,
behind.
we need a website where we can get dates for soldiers. I feel
Okay,
like that's
so I
a
have
thing in and
tons of
itself.
profiles. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so
for sure. And that exists.
Okay.
But one of the things that was, for me, what I see is that there's this whole narrative going on, like, oh, the Charedim are not engaged. And like, the Rebbe wanted us to hunt down people with love. And when a soldier reaches out for help, I'm like, this is our obligation. Someone is saying, help me. It's like a hand coming out of the, out of the trenches. Like, help me. I am sitting with a moldy helmet. I'm a medic, and I'm going in and I don't have plates because the army is backlogged, or I'm the 20% who didn't get, or whatever it is. Help me. And what does that mean for us? Help me. So then when I see our brothers who are standing and blocking traffic and saying we will die and we won't draft, I have compassion for them too. I understand where they're coming from, because I understand everybody. I understand the left, I understand the right. Everyone is coming from their perspective, and their perspective is valid in it of its own right. Where it affects society, that's already for lawmakers, politicians, and interpreters and the media. That's not my role. My role is to act. I don't need a judge. That's what God is here for. Do I want to live like that? I have my own choices. I choose to serve my soldiers because I know that it serves everyone. And I can't imagine a different reality. And one of the things that I saying about action is that when it comes to Hashmonaim, which is the first, ultra-Orthodox unit, number one, they have the highest Charedi standards. I know the Tilomi guys who were put there, and they're like, get me out of here. It's so from. And, you have to get up, they have to go to shul, they have to daven, they have to learn, and there's a schedule, they have to eat the right things. There's no cheating here, okay? This is a very, God-fearing unit. And not only that, in terms of their excellence in military performance, they are exceptional. They surpass paratroopers in their training.
Wow.
And so we had the honor, the first reserve team to actually go into Gaza. We helped equip them with helmets and vests and plates because they're reservists. It's different with Sadir. The Sadir have their own equipment, but because reservists have shorter cycles, then they will get, with time, but it just takes time till the way it works with the military is they put in an order, then it takes them about 2 weeks to take it from this table to that table.
Oh, you're saying there's bureaucracy in the army?
It's pretty bad. Yeah. And so we were approached by soldiers that we knew from previous units, and they're like, we are the pioneers. We're going to become the commanders of these new trainees and these new reservists. Can you help us get helmets? And we got the medic bags, helmets, vests, glasses, shoes, backpacks. We were able to this was a very unique and special case. Halavai, we had the budget to do this for every single righteous soldier who walks through our door, including the new teams of Hashmonaim, because the budget is so tremendous. But that was a specific pilot that we had the honor, and this was given to me last week, which I feel just is representative of everything that we stand for, is that we are one nation, one flag, and here are all the names of all the soldiers. And by the way, I know half of them. And
I'm looking Mendel, Moshe, Chaim, Nachum, Shlomi, Gabriel.
Yeah, and they've been to my home, and they're Charedi, they're Chabad, they're from Israel, they're from France, they're from America. Some are Hamish. And by the way, in terms of the cost, they probably pay the worst price socially and socioeconomically than anyone else, because most of them have between 6 to 8 children. I'm not joking. Which obviously I would also love to go on a vacation to Lebanon with 6 to 8 kids at home. It's just like, bye, go do the dishes and make the food.
I would say they should make a unit for moms who need a break.
I know a lot of women who join Shlav Bet. You're joking, but it's true. And by the way, that's another thing. We helped a paramedic. She actually was, she had quite a few articles. She's a nurse, and she was in Lebanon. Her husband's a medic in Lebanon. Her son is a medic in Lebanon. And her other son was also serving. And we got invested in all their teams, because each of them, like through her, then through him, then through him. And it's not the type of situation where like, why don't you just buy your own equipment? Like, hello, they don't have the resources. When you're serving and you're not getting your salary, and you have to pay for someone to do the things that you're not doing at home. If you're leaving your wife behind with 5 kids, there needs to be babysitters. You need help with food. There's a cost to leaving your home. And they don't have now 10, 20,000 shekel to upgrade their game if needed. So it's not just about saving their lives. It's also restoring their dignity. It is charity, because they can't afford it. People who can afford it, they have their act together. They go to the store where they take their credit card, they buy the best of the best, and that's what it is. If someone's reaching out to you today, most likely they've been through tough times. They most likely have PTSD, and they have very extensive therapy costs. The Army covers only 12, 20, whatever sessions. They go to nonprofits. It also covers a specific amount of sessions. They need more.
Sure.
And all the other aspects of rehabilitating their life. And so many of them can't even go back to work anymore, because they're like, we can't focus. And we know what's going on. And we know that we can serve better over there. There's just no point. I spoke to a lawyer yesterday for half an hour, and he's serving in Syria. And he tells me that his back is completely shot. He has a herniated disc, and he's the company commander. So he said, what I do is I mentally switch off. I serve my unit. I disconnect from my pain. And then when I come home, I have to go get an MRI, and I have to get surgery, and I can't breathe. And it's just so bad. And so then he's like, do you have a back belt? And do you have a vest that could support it? And I said, yeah, that's what we do. We are here to see you in your pain, and we have solutions today. And one of the things that we have is we have these special arrangements with suppliers for subsidized equipment with donors that give ergonomic back support, and it helps them with their shoulder pain, their neck pain, their lower back, their sciatic pain, everything. And one of the most amazing things that I asked them when they finished their round, I said, did it make a difference? And they said, it was just night and day. Like I could just function, and they're not busy with whatever's going on, with their head, with their back, with their shoulder. Like, do you know how painful a dislocated shoulder is?
Sure, and these guys are in their 40s. I mean, a lot of them become very fit after they join the Army. You see some transformation.
In the best cases.
Yes. I know people listening are clamoring for their credit cards. They just want to throw cash at the screen. Everyone's trying to figure out how fast they could help, who they could help. There is concern, obviously, always about getting scammed, sending your money to an organization that doesn't use it for the right things. I can't speak for all of them, but there have been organizations that
Absolutely.
took more than they give. It's clear here that this is a case that is.
So let me make it clear,
Okay.
because don't make assumptions.
So
Don't
where
make assumptions. You
yes.
should always be skeptical. Anyone who reaches out, really do your due diligence. Our project is volunteer-based. I'm a volunteer. I work full-time in a law firm. I have 5 children. I do this as a labor of love. I haven't slept in 3 years. I lost a ton of weight before the war. I gained it all back now. I'm exhausted, but very satisfied.
You are a hero, and you are an IDF hero in and of itself. Seriously, and I see the connections you're making with these soldiers. You're there, you're there with them in spirit.
Well, it's more like I'm holding their voice, and their voice matters. Like, I'm here because they can't show up in front of a camera. They're not allowed. And their voice, and I tell them, like, I know you need this and you're struggling. You had Tuvia Book here a while back. I spoke to him yesterday. He joined a new unit, and he told me there's 50 medics. There's 29 medics and 8 paramedics and doctors. They all need vests. They all need plates. They all need helmets, and they all need medical bags. And I said to him, what's going on over there? And he said, it's just the Army is not, I went and I verified it. I spoke to Army Logistics. What can they get? What are they not getting? And this is an example of a soldier that you know. I'm not even pulling it out of the hat. It just happened to be.
And you would think he has all the connections in the world.
But that, first of all, there's donor fatigue, which I don't believe in, by the way. I believe everyone has miser. You just have to understand that this is a fundamental need.
I don't think it's good donor fatigue. I just think there's a lot of
skepticism.
They were, listen, after 2 years, people are taking...
skepticism and a deep, deep fundamental misunderstanding of why do soldiers still approach us. And I do think that using an organization like ours that knows how to vet things, which is what we do, we're very careful. Not everyone who turns to us gets a response because they have to fit our criteria, and we verify everything within the military, and anything you can get within the military, we're like, look, this is what you have. For example, medic bags, they don't get. So that is something that's easier to vet, because if someone's coming and say, I need 20 medic bags, I need 20 medic bags. I want to say one more thing. We don't have any overhead. Unit 11741.com. Everything is given. 100% is going only on equipment, only life-saving equipment. And which is also crazy, because you need a PR budget, you need a staff, and that's part of why we don't even have time to do all that, because you need money to make money, so to speak. And right now we're just like, we still want to show up for our guys. We don't have time, and now I want to regroup and really see how we can best serve them.
Are you set up to accept donations from serious donors?
We've raised, in the last 3 months, we've raised over 1,200,000 shekel. Okay. That was all distributed.
So you have the means to bring the money into the country, and we have tax receipts, all
Unit
that.
Unit11741.com is a 501c3. It's called the Alliance for a Secure Jewish Future. And
of course you could use your tzedakah money, your Meiser money. It's a mitzvah. You could raise money in your kid's school. You can
That's
have
what we do.
Right. You
People
can
sell
make
cupcakes.
It a team community effort. I love
and bar
that.
mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs. I do want to say, in terms of need, people are like, oh, do people still need? The last 48 hours, I got requests for over 90 medic bags, 14 doctor bags. The doctor bags are expensive. They're over $500 a bag, and they need them, paramedics and doctors. I got requests for over 300 helmets, a lot of them from Sadir, from tankists, and medics that are crossing into Lebanon and other areas, and hundreds of medic vests, all in the last 48 hours. And I'm like, again, this is my God moment where I'm like, Hashem, I'm one person. You are putting the burden of a nation. My phone number is out there, Chanale. This is it.
Well, now you're on Moral Edge on the Weekly Squeeze. Forget it.
Right? No, but I'm saying in terms of soldiers, there is no going back for me. There is no turning off my phone.
I know.
They're going to keep calling me night and day.
You asked Hashem, and Hashem sent you here, and there's somebody watching now who's going to help you pay for this gear.
So I'm davening, and I tell soldiers, my list is magic. Everyone who gets on my list, it's like a channel that brings down blessings and light. And I said, I don't make any guarantees. I have guys who went on my list on July 24, and the resources only came in 6 months later. And then I call them back. They're like, you're still thinking about me? And I'm like, you're on my list. And what's more is that I get requests from units. Hi, I'm from this and this unit. I'm like, I know, and I know what you need, and I know what happened in your storeroom last week. And they're like, how do you know? I'm like, because you're on my list. And they're like, how am I on my list? I'm like, I know what's going on with you guys, and we want to help whatever we can. And again, we do get requests through Facebook and Instagram from very sweet soldiers who get very good equipment from the military, and they're kind of fishing for upgrades. Again, I respect them, and I say, look, I know what you need, but it's not what we're about. If you have something that's safe, then, this is a personal choice. But we are dealing with safety and pikuach nefesh and maximum saving of lives. This bag, for example, could save an infinite amount of lives forever. And it does, because I literally get regards every day. We're here, the headline yesterday, we were there, we did our best to save them. Yesterday, a soldier came to pick up 6 medic bags. Yashar L'Chayal helped to fund them, and 2 paramedic bags. And he called me an hour later. He's like, Chaya, I'm really sorry. We wanted to send you a picture from up north, but they were part of the evacuation. And they're just wrecked because the soldier was killed, and they're living that. And not just that, every time they go into an event like that, their equipment gets covered in blood, and they have to bury it, Zaka and Rabbanut and whatever. And by the way, talking about Rabbanut, we also serve the Rabbanut, because the Rabbanut is one of the classes of soldiers who don't get good equipment.
Is that part of like Zaka and groups that go in and
it's Army Rabbanut.
Right.
They pick up the pieces of the remains.
Because Zaka doesn't go into Gaza, so that's what they're
right. The Yassar and other Rabbanut, and they don't get a quota from the military, and they don't have a budget because you're a Rav with 8 kids. Right. Yeah, you're a Rav with 8 kids. You're a shliach. Like, where do you have now 10,000 shekel to put on equipment? And the fact is, that's where we are. We are listening. We are processing. We are evaluating, and not only that, we're in Beit Shemesh. And I know in the last Iran offensive 3 months ago, there was a terrible hit here on the Shul.
On the Shul. With the family.
And a month earlier, I provided dozens and dozens of special, a different, cheaper version of this bag to collect remains for the Rabbanut. And they were there.
Wow, at the Shuls.
And
Chaya, you are a class act. The Rebbe should look down from Shemayim and get nachas from you, and be here in spirituality to help us through these difficult times, and to protect our soldiers and make the right connections, and the right funds should come in. And our people.
We shouldn't have a need. We should be smarter politically, diplomatically. We shift the narrative, have a different stance, But if we're already in the situation,
we're going to rise up and do the best we can.
We can't control it. We can make a difference.
Listen, the Rebbe said it decades before any of this, that protecting Jewish lives in this land is never a side issue. It is the issue. It's the point. You're living that. One vest, one medic bag, one helmet at a time, one soldier at a time. So thank you.
And helping the needy. Needy of Israel.
Amazing. Thank you on behalf of Am Yisrael. If this moved you, it certainly moved me. Go to moraledge.com. Visit the links in our show notes where you can donate. You can find links to more content. You could find Chaya's work, find Unit 11741, and decide what caring is actually going to look like for you. Thank you for joining us here at Moral Edge. I'm Chanale. See you next week.